Well, you were both you and Ella then were able to compare these two styles of education, and Ella had experienced what 2 years of a more conventional style of education, right? Or nearly two,
We had 2.5 years.
2.5.
She would have done transition class 1 and was in class 2 at the time when I was doing it.
You'd walked into a situation where, I mean, Olsh obviously had huge resources available, and a school that was just starting, that was struggling really to survive, and had almost no resources to speak of, let alone money.
It's
So what
true.
was that? What was that like?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, none of those things ever worried me. I was more concerned about what happened on the inside of the classroom, not the outside of the classroom. And what I saw, and also I had that experience of Louis being at the kindergarten for those 6 months. And my sense was that having been involved at that stage, you know, in more than just dropping the kid off by then, it was, I suppose, in the committee as well as or that parent group or volunteer group, is that I began to learn about Steiner education. I could see what Louis was doing. I could see the wonder. I could see the beauty. It was pragmatic. It was imaginative. It was values based. It was, so the whole thing just resonated in every way. So not having the resources that a big school like Olsh might have didn't worry me because what Steiner education revered to me was childhood.
Sure.
Was
But was it was the fact that it might not survive, because you would have become aware of that it was often imperiled, the future of the school was sometimes, on a fine line.
Absolutely.
How did that affect your experience of it? Is that what, for example, is that what drove you or encouraged you to become a part of the school community, part of the parent community, the committee?
I don't think I ever thought of it not surviving. I just always thought of it as contributing to growing up an amazing sense of embracing and holding this most amazing education. So if you had to start from scratch, well, you had to start from scratch. But it wasn't about fear of it. I think I always felt that it would be successful. I mean, I do think also, of course, part of that contribution or that part of that way of thinking was about it was as much as it was about the central focal was the school, is that there was an awful lot of personalities involved that all had to be managed as well as, and we all had to think about why were we there, and why were we there? But my sense was, for me, it was about a values-based education, which resonated very well with me, and I figured that the philosophy of what I call Mr. Steiner was just amazing. And so, and that it was a holistic approach. It was the reverence to a child that was offered, and therefore, the holistic development of a little human being into being, so more of themselves than what a mainstream offered.
Mm.
And the children were supported and revered. They weren't just a statistic. So they're the things. So I suppose for me, that's what drove me was the value of this education, not just for my children, but for other children as well as not. Yeah. So it was about, that's what drove me, I suppose.
So you had faith in the Steiner ideas, and you had faith in the school. That's interesting, because the more people I talk to and consider my own experiences, what I wonder whether perhaps that jointly held faith and confidence in the truth of what Steiner education was about was in fact what sustained it through some pretty hard times to a degree.
Well, I think so, yes. Yes, it is, you know, this school had to come into being for some whatever reason, you know. So, and for whatever, I mean, in some ways, I suppose I felt as though I was being re-educated. And I think that that's what you had to do to make it happen.